Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining me. My name is Paula McGurdy and I am a visual artist, and I've recently started recording conversations with female creatives within Ireland, and it's really to find out a bit more about what they do, but also just to show the amazing talent and beauty that we have around us, and to give space to other creatives who are in this field. And recently I recorded a conversation with Gráinne Bath Enright, and if you know Gráinne's work, you'll know how wonderfully and beautifully detailed her work is. If you don't, you need to check her out. She does these very, very detailed, stunning drawings, and Gráinne will be talking a bit more about her work process, about how she got into art, about what her day-to-day looks like, and really about some of the inspirations behind her work as well. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. These podcasts are going out every Thursday and they are called Creative Conversations With, and I hope that you will enjoy bringing them on your walks or listening to them in their car, or just when you're creating yourself or when you're about the house or in work, and that they bring you some sense of inspiration as well. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Thank you.
Hi, Gráinne. Hi. How are you?
How are you? Nervous?
Nervous? No, it's just a little chat. Just put it down to that. Thank you a million for joining me today.
Amazing.
I know. Sorry, there's a bit of a backlog with the microphone and stuff, so I guess I just need to be aware of that. What a gorgeous day! It's amazing. It's so beautiful out. So
absolutely stunning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have a little fan set in front of me, and it's just perfectly throwing a little bit of wind my way.
Good. That's what's needed, isn't it? Well, Gráinne, thanks a million for joining me today and just pulling up a seat and having a chat. For those watching or listening, Gráinne, as I said, does the most beautiful and exquisite drawings and artworks. And in particular, I absolutely love your bird series that you do. They're just absolutely stunning. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see a bit better. So I guess the best place to start is telling us a bit about your story. How did you get into art? Was it something that was encouraged when you were a child? Was it always there, or what were kind of the beginnings for you in terms of your artwork?
Well, I suppose I'm someone that it has always been there. Like, I've always wanted to draw, always wanted to paint. As far as I can remember, like, it's all I ever wanted to be was an artist. I didn't really know what that meant at the time. I just knew that I could do something artistically creative, I suppose. Really lucky in that, like, both of my parents were really supportive. They always encouraged me to draw, and I suppose you're lucky that when you start to get really into drawing, it's sort of, you get good feedback, and then the good feedback you get from that, you want to do it again, and then the better you get at it, and then and it's a kind of a continuous loop, which I suppose that encourages yourself. But yeah, no, as a kid I just loved the idea of finishing something and then looking at it and thinking, oh, I made that, so that's kind of always been something that's been there. My sister as well, I have a twin sister, Orla. She drew a lot, quite a bit, so the two of us would draw together and paint together and stuff. So there was always, like, my stepsister as well, like, we would all do it on holidays together. It was always just something to do, I suppose, more than anything. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by twins as well. You say you're a twin sister, so is she an artist as well? Like, I always wonder about the correlations between that relationship and how it works out. And it seems like a very special bond. But also then, I mean, the fact that you're saying that she's artistic as well,
Yeah, and she'll be delighted now she's getting a mention. She'll be
good.
She is artistic. She didn't follow the route, and I suppose when we were kids, I was definitely more into it than she was. But she was, and I think that if she had decided to pursue it, she could have gotten a lot better at it as well. But she is someone that, you know, to relax herself and stuff, she would do a bit of painting and drawing. No, but she's completely opposite. She went down the science route, so she's actually a doctor of paleontology. So,
okay.
yeah, very different. But very different routes, but in this, sometimes it feels very similar because we both really followed our passions. They're both very creative, I think, in their own way. I think science is great. So, you know, in her own way, she's gone off and she's discovering things and kind of finding out things through research. And that's how I feel about when I do things with art, is you have to find out something. So in some ways we're very similar, and in some ways we're not. I think the fact that very different careers as well sometimes makes us closer because we kind of have our own things. We're individual people, you know.
Brilliant. And I see your gorgeous pictures behind you there then, Gráinne. They're all yours then, are they?
They're all mine. And it's
drawings.
There that it's really bizarre that I have these two, because those two are years old.
Okay,
I do not those. And there's a human. There's never humans in my stuff, so that's really weird.
Wow, yeah, because you do a lot of nature, and lately I saw you doing one up in Marley. You were in Marley Park?
Yes, yeah.
Doing Marley House. And I was like, oh, because we had our wedding reception there, and I was like, oh, I love that.
I've always loved, and especially in school was when I really discovered how much I loved detail. So I don't know if you remember in school and the art, you know, you'd be given a big box of like, there'd be the old shoe and there'd be the peppers and all these things to draw. It was like the inside workings of a clock. And I used to just make a beeline for the inside of the clock every time. I absolutely loved it. I was just obsessed with getting all of the detail and stuff in it. And then like that with the shoe and stuff, the texture, but it's really where the kind of love of detail came from. It's funny, my art teacher in school was really into drawing flowers and all that kind of thing as well. So I don't know if maybe that rubbed off or if I just sort of came to that myself. But yeah, I always loved drawing nature, and I've actually always loved buildings, but I kind of for a while spent so long going down the sort of nature route, and I'm really interested in environmental sciences and stuff. So I've kind of come back. Now the architecture is something I'm really working at, but I have to say I'm really enjoying learning and being bad at something, because sometimes it gets
it's beautiful. Your work is beautiful. So good. Yeah.
You know, I go to draw a bird now and it's kind of like, oh, I don't know how to do that. And it can get a little, you know, boring when you know something that well. So I think I'm really enjoying the learning aspect and the feeling like I'm getting better each time. And the like, oh, I get that. I figured that out this time. So that's a nice feeling to kind of go back to the start in a way. Is really nice. Yeah.
So if somebody was to ask you about your work, if they said to you, how would you describe your work? What would you say?
I suppose up to now, my work is sort of, they're detailed landscapes, but they're not landscape in a traditional sense, I suppose. They're detailed clusters. A lot of the pieces I do are based around a sense of place or environmental sciences or Irish myths and legends. I kind of like to look at the two when I do a piece. So very much based on the natural world, a particular place. Something I've read recently, I've tried to bring a lot more sort of important research into it in terms of environmental issues, climate change issues, stuff that I really care about. So try to bring a bit more of that in. There's actually quite a lot of research I do before I do a piece. A lot of within a piece will have a certain meaning. It's not just done as an accessory to the main thing. It's done as a sort of a suggestion or a nod towards some specific piece of information.
So what is it that, are you working on something like, say for instance with the birds that you're doing, do they have a greater meaning, or is it something specific that you're working on at the moment that has that kind of greater meaning?
So actually there's 6 new prints I'll have coming out very soon, hopefully be out before quarantine. But of course all of this started. 3 of them are sort of, actually one of them is those ones there, the owl. So those 3 were more sort of really getting back into pencil and studying detail. So there's a curlew, a heron and an owl. And then the other 3 pieces are actually they're nothing to do with environmental issues. They're more a personal kind of look on things. And I mean, the birds are just sort of used as a sort of a metaphor for something as opposed to something particularly environmental. So those three pieces would be more to do with my own personal life and an experience I went through. So three pieces are, and when I release those or have them, I'll share a bit more about them, but they are sort of, I'm sort of trying to understand how to talk about personal stuff with art because it's not really something I've done before. So had pages of me trying to write out how I'm going to talk about it. So that's fun. So it's nice as well. It's nice to do the natural stuff, but bring my own personal experience to it as opposed to always being about saving whatever it is.
The personal can be difficult, can't it? Because I guess there's such a sense of being completely wide open when you share something that's very personal to you, and it's a very vulnerable place, I guess, to be as well, which I mean art full stop is when you put your art out there, I think. But then when you have a story behind it that's very personal to you, it's it can be difficult. And I think it can also be a thing that you learn how to communicate or use the words that you feel the most comfortable with if you choose to. Some people I guess don't as well, and that's and even fine, you know.
I mean, there's other pieces I've sort of done in the past and I kind of know they're personal, but I never really shared anything about it. And now I tend to, when I'm nearly finished a lot of pieces, I tend to actually kind of go to two of my friends in particular, and I'm like, what do you think about this? And this is what it's really about, but should I say that? And we kind of have a discussion about it, and they're like, it makes it so much more interesting when you share it, but the sharing it's so difficult. You feel like you're standing on shouting to everyone, this is what this is. Yeah. It's silly because most people, they'll just put their own personal experience on top of it. They won't actually really take too much interest in yours. But that's how it feels. So, but it's good. I think it's a good learning step, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see them. So I'm sure they'll be amazing whenever you, at the end, in the next few months, I guess you'll be releasing them, did you say?
I'm hoping to have them next month now. So I was kind of, my print, the Copperhouse gallery that I use in town, they've sort of opened back up for that sort of stuff. So I'm able to get scans and kind of put the finishing details, and I'm putting colour in them for the first time. Just a hint. Me and Photoshop have been at war with each other.
I don't use Photoshop at all. I know nothing. I'm such a just hands-on. That's it. When it comes to anything technical, I mean, it's amazing that we're even having this conversation, to be honest with you, Gráinne.
I always thought the hard part was just getting it drawn and finishing it and getting through a piece, but no, the hardest part has been just trying to figure out how to do things on Photoshop.
Oh my goodness. And the whole printing process as well. I was like,
oh, I know. And I'm always kind of going in, and because I didn't study fine art, I'm sort of always going in. I mean, and what way does this work? And how does this thing, and what's that thing? And I think because you are releasing fine art prints and you're doing sort of, drawings and paintings, people just automatically presume you did fine art in college. But like that's not, it's actually very much had to learn a lot about printing and what way it works and that kind of thing, so that's a learning curve as well.
Well, if it's any consolation, I did fine art and I learned nothing about the printing process in college, so that is all new to me as well.
Say that to me either.
So tell us a bit about your working day then, Gráinne. How do you, in terms of your day to day, and do you work in series? I know you're working on this current one. Do you work in multiples? Do you have a few on the go at the time? Do you work in a studio? Do you work with music? How does your day to day kind of look like?
So my day to day tends to be, are we talking about at the moment or regularly?
Yeah, sure. At the moment, I guess now it's current, isn't it? But
normally, in terms of how I work with projects, I usually have my own stuff and another project or maybe two going on at the same time in relation to maybe more commercial work, I suppose. So usually there's something like that going on alongside getting my own work, which I find works really well for me, because knowing, oh, I have this meeting or I have this deadline due with this group of people on Tuesday. Okay, I'll have this and this done before then. So within lockdown, a lot of that work is obviously gone. So I'm finding it quite hard to not have, it sounds, you feel so lucky in one way because you're like, I've all this time to be doing all this stuff. But I've realized that I work much better when I've got other things running at the same time. So in some ways, it's difficult to have a lot of time to myself. But I would start first thing in the morning. I always have the radio on in the morning. I'm a big fan of any podcast, lots of music. My day works very much with what I'm listening to. So it tends to be like radio in the morning until about 12. Then I'll maybe listen to a podcast for an hour. And then in the evening, there might be another podcast. And then it goes to music in the evening. And that's how I take the day with the listening. It also depends on what I'm doing, because obviously if you're really concentrating on something, I can't listen to a podcast or an audible book. It's a bit too much. I need in terms of process and that, I do quite a lot of research now, and that's a reasonably new thing in the last 2 years. And I'm really the reading it, the researching it, sort of just even I've tried to accept that just things like going for a walk and having a listen to something that you're thinking about is incredibly helpful. For a walk, I felt really guilty about just going out for a walk to have a think about something, but I've realized that it's better than staring at a blank page for an hour trying to do. I tend to do quite a lot of process work as well, a lot of sort of just loosening up on what I'm going to do before I do it. I tend to work in series, so if I know I'm going to do 3 pieces based on a particular theme or a concept, I tend to do them one at a time. Though in the process, part of it, I would tend to think about how all of them are going to look together, what each of them are going to be. So I'll know in my head what I want all 3 finished pieces to look like, but then I'll work one by one. I've actually recently thought that maybe I might change that and try and maybe do 2 at a time, because the break away from something is really healthy. It's something, coming back to, when you wake up the next morning and you come back to something and you've looked at it from across the room and you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's
not quite how I remember.
Remember that. Yeah.
It's so funny, isn't it? I think every artist must do that, Yeah. I love that feeling though of walking in and going, I want to see, I'm looking forward to seeing how I left this and whether I like it or not.
Like, I don't remember if I liked this yesterday. I'm going to come back in and like, hello, how are you today?
Are you happy to see me? Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
You kind of have a conversation with the piece, and sometimes repetitive and you're not getting along, and then other times you're sort of like, okay, we're getting on today, we're working together. So it's kind of, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, there's 2 areas of light and shade going on there. I don't know what happened there.
Or sometimes it's so bad that you're just like, I'm going to banish you to the corner or into the drawer. I'm not going to look at you for a while.
And I think that's the thing it's really hard as an artist, and for other people to understand that a lot of the time when you want to draw, when you're in the mood is when you actually have other stuff to do. So it's very rare that it times up perfectly with you're really in the mood to do this and you're supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
Admin work, which I never really considered as a business of any kind, just the amount of stuff that people don't see that you have to do in the background is something I was really surprised by. But then at the same time, sometimes when you're really struggling with something, it's nice to just put it away and be like, I'm just going to do this other thing for an hour or 2. I need to just leave this page. Yeah.
And you mentioned business there, Gráinne. So I guess I suppose this is from a personal experience. When you mentioned that you're an artist, do you mention that you have your own business? Do you mention that you're an artist? Because I think sometimes people maybe don't fully understand what it means to be an artist. How do you respond to that, or how do you explain that? I guess
know that either until I start. I suppose because where I started from was scenic painting. I studied production design, so for designing sets and for film and theatre. So because I started with doing commercial things, being a scenic painter, doing some design, I kind of had to, I suppose, set myself up as a business or a sole trader. You learn all these words very fast. And then when I started sort of doing my own sort of stuff as an artist, I very quickly realized that it is a business, especially if you're going to do prints, because you're organizing, you know, the getting of materials, the where it's going, how it's getting there, all this stuff. So I did a course with Leo, the local enterprise office, and the course is very good. To be honest, I look back and I realize I probably did it a bit too early on. I probably should have done it maybe later, but at the same time, that course made me realize, oh, I am a business. And more importantly, it introduced me to like 20 other creative people within the industry. Some of them I'd known their stuff before I met them. And that really validated that I could be a business, because for a long time I just struggled with the very simple thing of just like, oh, I don't know, is my work good? I don't think it's good. You know, that's time to get over it, to just accept, oh, it's good. Now, what am I going to do about it? You know, that step is huge. It's just to accept that you like your work and that you want to share it with other people. But I do see myself, I suppose, as a business, especially because of the commercial stuff I take on, and because I get prints made of my work. I do think in the future I would possibly like to go down the avenue of maybe just doing originals. But at the moment, it's a great way to experience people and what they like and what they don't like, and sort of have your, you know, I like the idea of, you know, at least a limited amount of people having your work, and it's very enjoyable.
Yeah. And you do, so you do commercial work, you said. I know you do commissions as well. What kind of commercial work would that be that you would, was that to do with the set design then as well, or?
Yeah, so I used to do quite a lot of scenic painting and design and that. I got into it very randomly. It was before I had originally gone freelance. My good friend Kira got the tenure for the Gaiety Panto design, and year we came out of college, like, and I knew she had to paint these big fairy tale cloths, and I was still working in a shop at the time after finishing college, and I'd been really scared when I finished college. I was kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't think I want to do it. I haven't a clue what I'm doing. And I just texted and was like, hey, heard you got this thing. Can I come paint? And she was like, yes, please do. And next thing I knew, myself and her, she had also never painted a cloth. We're just standing in front of this 12 by 8 meter cloth, being like, oh, okay, so we've terrifying.
You're like, what have we agreed to? What do we do now? Googling things, you know.
People know that we're the people that have been put in charge of this. It was great fun though. It was really good fun. You know, all of my friends are extremely talented and creative, so we figured it out together. Thank God. But she designed the sets and that as well. But then 5 years later, I've been doing it every year. I do all the design for the cloths now myself, and I enjoy it to some part of it. I think kind of I'm sort of maybe ready to move on from it now, but it gave me a lot, and I'm not gonna I look back and sometimes I'm like, oh, it's just this thing, and I'm like, but that was really where it started, because I had initially done that thinking, oh, this is a way to become a set designer. But then through I really enjoyed, I realized, oh, the side of set production that I like is the painting side of it. So we did operas and theaters and stuff like that, and we painted them. And then the more we did that, the more I really just missed drawing and painting. So that's kind of how I never, like, the reason I did set design in college is because I was like, oh, you can't make money out of being an artist. Like, that's so determined to do something creative that I could make a life out of. And so it's kind of funny that I ended up just coming all the way back around to drawing and painting anyway. But I don't know if I'd done fine art if I would have stuck with it. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess it was a journey for you, wasn't it? And it was obviously the right journey at the time, you know, for you in order for you to get there. And I suppose there's lots of people who do fine art and that don't go on, and that, you know, it's maybe not what they were expecting. Yeah,
exactly. And like, you know, I know quite a lot of people that didn't fine art and they haven't gone about that, but I think maybe it's just because sort of it maybe gives you a bit too much of your own time, whereas set really taught you how to deal with other people, how to deal with, you know, situations and certain deadlines. It's less about you and more about the production. So I think that I trained to design, not to be an artist, and I think there's something really important about that difference. Not because I got into doing my own work, but because I also was backed up with understanding large scale productions. It then meant that I started getting commercial work that was more about my own personal work, but it was on a bigger scale. But I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't have done the bigger scale set stuff. So a lot of villages with Bister and Kildare Village, you know, that came about because they had seen and liked my illustrations, but on top of it, they knew I was used to dealing with a larger scale. So it's kind of funny how they've all sort of fed into each other. And I commercial work, and especially in terms of working with other people, it's the part of creativity and being an artist I find quite difficult because I'm not an introvert. So working alone for weeks on end is not entirely my cup of tea.
Because so many artists are introverts, you know, and so it suits them quite well. So that's interesting, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, I think that's why the commercial work is something I need to keep, because I need I need that other project where there's other people to kind of chat to once in a while. Yeah. I mean, I obviously enjoy my own stuff, but
would you say that, I guess I was going to ask you about the challenges about being a creative or an artist. Would you say that that's one of your challenges, or do you have any other challenges that you would say?
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like I've grown into the role a lot more. Used to myself being alone with myself and just doing that in terms of time management and everything. I have gotten. That's not to say that sometimes it goes down and then you get really good at it again, and you know, it comes in waves. But it is a part of it that I sometimes find difficult. I really enjoy collaboration. I enjoy kind of energy that people get off each other from it. But I do also really enjoy the fact that with my own work, nobody else is telling me how they want something, what way they want something. They're going to cut something out because they're not in the mood for it, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that with other stuff that I do. So it's nice to just be like, I'm in full control of what's happening.
Yeah.
Great and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. I know. I guess it's the yin and yang of those things, though, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
And in terms of your inspiration, though, so what would you feel like? Where would you find your inspiration? Do you feel like, is there a certain inspiration behind the work, particularly when you're working? I guess we've already talked about working on a series, but on a day-to-day, or even if you're feeling stuck, do you have a certain, like, creatively stuck, which I know can be a thing for many artists? Do you have something that you think, I always know I get inspiration from this, and then it gives you a drive on to kind of push on? Or
yeah I kind of used to be very inspired by places around me, like particular habitats. At the moment I find that it tends to be a lot more of things I read, which is kind of interesting. So I mean, a lot of the books I buy, I am buying them partly to feel inspired in some way. Books, just I've recently, like, just really gotten back into reading in the last year, and there might be a line in it that's just kind of, that's an interesting perspective on this thing. And because I've gone past the sort of feeling like, oh, because I'm doing nature, it needs to be about nature, I've kind of transformed from that into being able to use it as a metaphor for something else. I've started in a different way of how I could come up with concepts and stuff. Quite inspired by science. I love, like, chatting to my sister. My stepsister is also, she's entomology, which is the study of insects and bugs.
Okay. Gosh, very scientific family then, really, aren't you? You know? Yeah. But then obviously you were saying that you have like the two do, you know, it's very different, but it's also very similar. So you obviously have that real curiosity about you for that as well.
Yeah, like I'm a very curious person. I love listening to things about science. I love like American politics. Like I'm really interested in all that stuff. And only recently I've started to realize how I can make that into art, because I think for a long time I struggled with the fact that, oh, but I'm a naturist artist. How do I talk about something or go about something? I kind of really struggled with it. And it's only recently I've started to realize how I can go about things, which is exciting because it's still something I really have to start exploring properly. But yeah, a lot of the time it's just something I read or I'll see, or it could be a conversation with someone. I mean, sometimes, I'm sure you know yourself, people love to give you ideas all the time. If they know you do something like, have you ever this? Why didn't you do this? And I mean, it's all
good intentions.
But it's very saturated sometimes.
Yeah.
And so funny is that when you're having a conversation with someone and they're not doing that and they don't realize that you have just been like, oh, that's a really good point. That's really interesting. And it comes from their conversation. It doesn't come from the suggestion they've thought.
Yeah.
It's quite
yeah, I know. People can be funny with their reactions, even also about just even saying that you're an artist, and you know what their reaction is to that. It's either dead silence or, you know, it's a completely different side of things. Like, some people just don't know what to do with it, and some people want to offer you, you know, a bit of advice about things, and that's fine. And then some people are just really curious about it, and they're like amazed that this is something that you can do, or, you know.
Assume they're like, oh, so you're in college. I'm like, no, like it's my job. But I find that I actually, if I'm with my friends and we're out and, you know, someone's asking the group, what does everyone do or whatever, I can feel the question coming around, and I don't want to tell them. I don't want to, because you know that they're going to be polite, and it's obviously something that may be slightly different to them, so you know that they're going to be like, oh, what kind of stuff do you do, and blah blah blah, and you don't want to tell them like, my friends really don't want me to talk about my art right now. So they don't want to know. They could tell you for me. They give you the spiel, you know.
Yeah, I know it's a funny one. I've often been, like everybody, you know, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm an artist, or so I did fine art drawing, and when people find out that you do drawing, they're like, oh, do you do portraits, and can you do this, and can you do that? And I go, no, my work is much more abstract. And suddenly it's like, what? So I guess people's reactions are very different, you know. But, yeah. I
think it's paused.
Oh, I think it's paused. Yeah, I think you're
I've
right.
lost you.
Can you hear me? Can you still hear me? I can still see you though, Gráinne.
You.
You're back! Yay!
Yeah, no, I know. And it's like that, you know, you'll get an email in about a commission or something, and I can't count the amount of people that have asked me to draw their daughter or their son, and I'm like, a bit of me feels like, have you even seen what I do? Have you seen any? I mean, I get it. You understand that it is just that thing of, oh, but you can make things look like things, so therefore could you do this for me? And the problem is that the answer is, I probably could. It's just not what I do, and you know, you sort of have to just thank them. And I always try to just suggest other artists I know that do it in a direction, so I'm at least helpful in some way. Yeah, it's always like, because I get a lot of like, could you draw this animal? Could you draw this animal? And a lot of the time, actually, people ask me about animals, and I'm like, I know, I actually really want to do a piece on that, but I'm not going to tell you when, because then you'll expect it, and I can't guarantee that will be when I actually do it.
Yeah, I know. There's a weight of responsibility then there, isn't there? You know, What about commissions? Do you like doing commissions then, Gráinne? Is that something that you enjoy?
It's funny, I didn't really go out seeking commissions. I just started getting emails asking about them. I'm a lot better at saying no to stuff I know that just doesn't suit me. I did just take them because I thought, oh, this is great. Someone's paying me to make art. I'll say yes. Now I tend to be quite picky about it. Is something that looks like it's in the realm of the kind of work I do, unless I feel like it's a good fit, I'm not going to do it. I'm just, because I've started to value my own time a lot more. And okay, that could take me 3 or 4 days to do that, but don't I have that other thing I keep saying I'm going to do, and does this really fit in with the kind of work I want to do? So I have got a lot better at just picking and choosing the work, and especially commissions, I feel are, again, they're a discussion. You know, you want to make sure they're happy, you're happy. It's also, there's nothing worse than the first time you send off, I'm always like, would you like, you know, I've said to them, you know, I'll send you a progress sketch of just the rough layout so you have an idea of what it's going to look like.
Sometimes I go, no.
And like, I'll just send them, I'll say to them, I'm just going to send you one just so you see before I actually start the finished product. And then when you product, I mean, as soon as I'm finished, every time I'm always like, oh God, oh, did they really not expect that? Why did I do that bit like that? Oh God. And then you send it and it's nail biting waiting for the email back. It really is, you know. But I find them, but I don't know if it's something that I would seek more of. If it suits, I'm really happy to do it, and it's something that I genuinely want to do. But if it's something that I know I can't give my best to because it doesn't really quite fit, I do just tend to say no, and sort of value that I could probably use my time in a better way.
And that's it. Time is so valuable, isn't it? I think that's the one thing that really, you know, that's the key factor in all of it, isn't it? And if something is taking your time away from what you really want to be doing elsewhere, then I guess it's a good lesson, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and I think being taken away on other projects and stuff is actually, or just, you know, it could be family life, whatever it is that takes you away from your work. It's actually that I think is actually really important, because it makes you want to go back. It makes you excited to go back to do it. You know, time in the world with everything I could want to do work, I know I wouldn't be productive. You know, that's just the God's honest truth. I need those other things to distract me and to come away so that I'm like itching to get back into my space to do work. Good thing to yourself, because it means you know how to give yourself a bit of a kick up the arse, you know.
Which we all need sometimes. So tell us, what is the big dream? Like, if you were like thinking of your work and what you want to do in the future, and I know this is a tricky one because it's also, oh God, do I want to say that? But if you had a big dream, what was that? Sorry, what was that?
World domination. No. God. I don't know if you'd put big to it, but big to me would definitely, like, I would love my own proper studio space, you know, whether it's like a sort of, when I say shed, I mean like the really nice shed things you get now.
The design cabin that you see on architectural places. Yes, I know the ones. Yeah.
Very stylish. I would love a proper big studio space. I think I would eventually possibly like to go down the route of exhibitions, but that's very far away right now. It's just something I've always had in the back of my head, something I'd like to do. I don't know if, like, sometimes you have to sit back and think about that, because it's just sort of, sometimes it feels just like you're just kind of going month to month getting through what you can, and you sit back and be like, what is it, where am I going with this? I don't know. I think I would like to continue the prints in a limited sense on a broader scale. I would love to possibly have them in more places, more available in bricks and mortar sort of places around Ireland. I'd love to have a piece that's not in Ireland, just for the, I got outside this country. Not that I don't. the, you know, the support you get here, but I would love to be able to broaden where my work gets to. I think that would be really nice. I'd love to be able to kind of share it with more people. But honestly, just to continue being able to make a living from being a creative person is really, you know, I'd be really happy out with that, to be honest. It's but I think it would get, like, that's all we've all asked for, is just to be able to continue to every day is just really a big part of it. Yeah.
Well, they all sound like very valid things, and I'm sure they're all very achievable for you, Gráinne, to be honest. I can see your work going into many, many places and exhibitions and all sorts. I don't think they're beyond the realms of possibility at all. Your work is so stunning. And thank you so much for coming on today, Gráinne. It's been just a delight to chat to you. And I'll put up all of the links of where to find you, but just, you may as well say, where can people find you if they're listening to you now? What's the best place for them to find you?
So they can find me on Instagram is my main one. So that's at grainne.b.e. I do have a Facebook. I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but I do have one. That's what you use. I am on there. I have an Etsy, but there is a website that is actually currently being made. So thank God. My friends and family will be delighted. They can stop pestering me about having a website. I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll launch my new prints on that in a month or whatever. So at the moment, you can just go over to Etsy. It's capital letters GBE art if you're looking to have a look at the kind of work I do or whatever, but there will be a website very soon. So that will be
brilliant. Sounds great. Can't wait to see it. I'm sure it'll be beautiful. Well, thanks a million. As I said, thanks for taking time out of your day to chat. And I'll share this with others, and I'll share your links and stuff like that as well, and they can go on and see your beautiful work. And I just appreciate you coming on so much, and I hope you go on to create much more wonderful things to share with the world, not just in Ireland, but the greater world as well, Gráinne.
Well, thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Enjoy the weather.
Yes, it's amazing.
I know.
Talk soon, Gráinne.
Bye, Paula.
Bye. Take care.